You feel like you're not enough, not smart enough, not successful enough, not confident enough. And the worst part? You can't even explain why. You just wake up some mornings with this quiet, heavy feeling that everyone else has something figured out that you haven't. That feeling has a name. And once you understand where it actually comes from, it loses most of its power over you. Alfred Adler spent his entire career trying to answer one question. Why do so many people, no matter how talented or loved or capable they are, walk through life feeling fundamentally inferior? And what he found wasn't what anyone expected. The feeling of inadequacy isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that you're human. Adler called it the inferiority feeling, and he believed every single person on Earth experiences it. Not just people who struggle. Not just people with difficult childhoods. Everyone. The child who can't yet reach the light switch feels it. The adult who watches a colleague get promoted feels it. The parent who compares themselves to other parents feels it. It is, according to Adler, one of the most universal experiences of being alive. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is what most people never hear. Adler didn't see this feeling as a problem to eliminate. He saw it as the engine of almost everything meaningful humans have ever done. Every time you've pushed yourself to learn something new. Every time you've worked harder because you wanted to close the gap between who you are and who you want to be. That was your inferiority feeling doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's not your enemy. It's been misunderstood. The problem isn't the feeling itself. The problem is what we do with it. Adler made a distinction that changes everything once you really sit with it. He separated what he called the inferiority feeling from the inferiority complex. The feeling is normal, universal, even useful. The complex is what happens when the feeling becomes too heavy to carry, when instead of motivating you, it paralyzes you, when instead of pushing you forward, it convinces you that moving forward is pointless. Think about the difference between a student who feels nervous before an exam and studies harder because of it, and a student who feels so convinced they'll fail that they don't study at all. Same feeling at the root. Completely different relationship to it. And the question Adler kept asking was, what turns one into the other? Part of the answer lies in something called the style of life. From a very young age, Adler believed as early as 4 or 5 years old, we start building a story about ourselves and the world. We're not conscious of it. We're just small people trying to make sense of what's happening around us. And the conclusions we draw, even when they're wrong, even when they're based on one frightening moment or one careless comment from an adult, quietly become the lens through which we see everything that comes after. A child who is told even once, in the right tone at the right moment, that they're not as clever as their sibling might spend decades living as though that were an objective fact, not because it's true, but because the nervous system filed it away before they had the tools to question it. This is important to understand. Your sense of inadequacy is usually not a realistic assessment of your abilities. It's an old conclusion, drawn by a young mind that has never been properly updated. And there's something almost tender about that. When you think about it, you're not broken. You're working with outdated information. Adler also noticed that the way we respond to the inferiority feeling tends to fall into recognizable patterns. Some people compensate by chasing achievement relentlessly, never satisfied, always reaching, because underneath the success is a quiet fear that if they stop, the feeling will catch up. Some people withdraw, avoiding situations where they might fail or be judged. Some people project, becoming competitive and critical of others as a way of managing their own sense of smallness. Some people become perfectionists, setting standards so high that no one could reasonably criticize them, but also setting standards so high that they're never truly at peace. None of these patterns are flaws in character. They're adaptations. They're the strategies a person developed, usually very early, to cope with a feeling they didn't have the language to name. Stay with this for a moment, because it reframes a lot. The colleague who is always the first to point out what could go wrong in someone else's idea. They might not be arrogant, they might be scared. The friend who never seems to celebrate your wins with full warmth. They might not be selfish. They might be quietly drowning in their own comparison spiral. The voice in your own head that tells you you're a fraud, that you don't deserve your successes, that everyone will eventually see through you. That voice isn't truth. It's an old coping mechanism that outlived its usefulness. Adler believed that mental health at its core came down to something he called social interest, a genuine sense of connection and belonging. A feeling that you are part of something larger than yourself, that your life matters to others and theirs matters to you. And what he found was that the inferiority complex thrives in isolation. When we pull away from others, when we compare ourselves from a distance without real connection, the feeling grows. It feeds on the gap between your private experience and the polished surface of everyone else's life. This is why the modern world is, in some ways, such a perfect machine for producing inadequacy. We are surrounded by curated highlights. We see the outcome without the process, the result without the struggle, the arrival without the years of uncertainty that preceded it. And our nervous systems, still running Adler software, interpret this as evidence that everyone else is just better at being alive. They're not. They're just not showing you the rest. One of the most quietly liberating ideas in Adler's work is the concept of fictional final goals. He believed that we are all, to some extent, living in pursuit of a fantasy, an imagined version of ourselves that we believe will finally feel adequate. When I get that job, when I lose the weight, when I find the right relationship, when I'm finally respected, when I stop making mistakes, we behave as though there is a destination where the feeling will stop, where we will arrive at some permanent state of enoughness. But Adler was clear, that destination doesn't exist. Not because life is cruel, but because the feeling was never supposed to go away. It was supposed to move you. The goal was never to eliminate it. The goal was to stop being afraid of it. And this is where the work actually lives. Not in fixing yourself, not in becoming someone different, but in learning to meet the feeling without flinching, in recognizing it when it arrives, understanding what it's telling you, and choosing consciously what to do with it rather than letting it run the show from behind the scenes. Adler had enormous faith in the capacity of people to change, not through willpower alone, but through awareness. He believed that once you could see the pattern clearly, once you could recognize the old story you were telling yourself, trace it back to where it began and ask honestly whether it still served you, real movement became possible. You don't have to believe the first thing you feel about yourself. You can hold that old voice with some gentleness. It did its job, it protected you, it tried to help, and you can also say, I don't need this anymore. I have better information now. The feeling of inadequacy when you stop running from it is often just a signal that you care, that you have standards, that you're paying attention, that there's something in you that wants more, not more things, but more depth, more connection, more meaning. And that wanting is not a wound. That wanting is the most alive part of you. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not the exception to the rule that people deserve to feel at home in their own lives. You are someone carrying an old feeling that was always meant to be a beginning, not a verdict. That's the difference, and now you know where to look. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who might need it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There's plenty more where this came from. See you soon for more content.